Hello, everyone. I actually did a free training on what we are going to be talking about today. So I will link that below in the show notes. But this is just too much of an important topic that I was like, I have to share it on my podcast here as well. So recently, my husband, he went in for a second round of elective spine surgery. And yes, I got permission to share all of this from him, but he's healthy, he's young, he's in good physical shape, and he had zero issues the first time around. It was, completely fine. However, this time, this was in, depending on when you're listening to this was in September of 2023. He actually suffered from a very serious anesthesia complication, which is called negative pressure pulmonary edema. And yes, see the irony. My husband, his wife is a CRNA, and he literally got blessed with the nurse curse, right? Literally ridiculous. And for those of you who are in the OR already as students or, residents, you know that the running joke is they blame anesthesia literally for everything. We are blamed for global warming, hard to open up ketchup packets, the weather, surgical equipment that's not working, right? Like that's like the running joke in the operating room. But in this instance, when it comes to negative pressure pulmonary edema, or NPPE, we're going to call it, this is kind of a complication that us as anesthesia providers kind of have to eat a little bit. Like we kind of have to take responsibility for that. I will say though that things do happen even besides our best efforts, our best prevention, methods. Surgery and anesthesia can be very unpredictable at times. And we always say, 99% of the time, my job is fine, things go fine, everything goes well. But when things go badly, the 1% of the time, they actually usually go very, very bad. And that's what we get paid for. That's why we have to know what we are doing, right? So, due to this complication, my husband actually ended up in the ICU for 3 days. He was supposed to just be in the hospital for an overnight stay. They could not get him off oxygen. It actually ended up being a pretty severe case of NPPE. He also suffered from alveolar hemorrhage and was legit coughing up bright red blood for days. So, really took a big hit to his system. But all of those details are in my free training that I will link in the show notes, along with I discuss how to recognize and how to treat laryngospasm, how to, recognize and treat NPPE. So definitely take the time to check that out. But what I want to focus on here for this episode is these 4 questions. Why is CRNA school so rigorous? Why should we focus on excellence over speed? Why you need ICU experience before entering into CRNA school or critical care experience, and why you need to work your butt off and why the sacrifice is always worth it. All right, that's what we're going to touch on today. So, number one, why is CRNA school so rigorous? Because it has to be, right? Because the stakes are high, because you are rendering someone's best friend, someone's husband, someone's wife, someone's child, someone's sister, someone's brother. You are literally rendering another human being conscious. You are taking away their basic survival instincts. You are putting their brain to sleep. You are paralyzing them, right? So they have no way to breathe on their own. You are putting to sleep their protective airway reflexes. So they can't even protect themselves from aspiration, right? Because anesthesia is a depressant. It causes loss of kind of our basic survival instincts, right? Your patient, someone's family member, literally cannot protect themselves. It is your job to do it for them and kind of decrease that sympathetic response while they're undergoing surgery, right? And it's not only about advocacy. I think a lot of times we think CRNA, we're like, oh, a patient advocate, we focus on that. But it's also so much about vigilance. And the name of my entire business, my company, is the Mindful SRNA, because being mindful is the job, not only as a CRNA when you are in the operating room, in procedural areas doing your job, but also while you are in school and while you are even like a nurse and working towards this goal, right? Being mindful means having your mind on what you are doing. It's the opposite of rushing. It's the opposite of doing way too many things at once. It's about focusing on what you're doing in a calm manner. being fully present, being aware of where you are, what you're doing, and not being overly reactive or overwhelmed. Like that is literally what our job is and why I am so passionate and why I named my entire business about being mindful, because that's what we are to do for our patients when we are putting them to sleep. Essentially, you are your patient's autonomic nervous system, you are their brainstem, right? And by the time you complete CRNA school, yes, you are going to be exhausted. You are going to be pushed to the edge of your capacity. You will be feeling all the impostery syndrome feelings, right? But you will have completed over 2,000 hours of clinical time. For those of y'all that don't know, we have to have 2,000 hours of clinical time logged in order to be able to graduate CRNA school. And you're not going to see everything, but you will see enough, and you will have created a strong foundation that you're going to be able to build upon your entire career and be able to handle anything that comes your way with all the knowledge that you've gained and all the humility that you have also acquired being in the OR. School is rough. Clinical is not easy. The days are long, and you are pushed to the brink. I will never argue that point, because it's because the little things are the big things. The little things that we do, the vigilance that we acquire, it prevents the big complications. And this leads me into the next question, is why we should focus on excellence over speed, right? And over some other things too that I'm going to talk about. There's a lot of things in school and in the operating room that we tie to our self-worth. And I think we do this in general because we just live in this very productivity driven society. And I have a whole coaching program where we do a lot of work on how we can untangle our self worth from our productivity and our performance. And this means in clinical, right? And that's where it gets tricky, because in CRNA school, you are, a novice. You're coming in to learn how to give anesthesia, and all eyes are on you. You go from being this big, bad expert, leader, ICU, critical care nurse, what have you, to feeling like you're kind of a nobody and you know nothing. And side note, everybody feels like that when they get started. Okay. Everybody does. No one's immune to the human feelings that happen when you start school. But you're not a nobody. But we have to remember that, and you're not even stupid. Let me just say that first. You're not a nobody. You're not stupid. You're just doing something new. But we have to go back and pull ourselves back from kind of how we feel and how uncomfortable it is. And remember, it's not about you, it's about the patient. And that even when you feel like crap, you're struggling with skills, you're getting yelled at, you're humiliated at some point, right? This job is about doing the hard things. It's about having difficult conversations. It's about communicating in intense situations. This job is not about looking good and being speedy, and it's not even about being liked. It's about that person's family member that is laying on the table. And I know that's so hard when you feel like everything is coming down on you. You want to get a good, you want to get a good evaluation. You want this, but remember, your self-worth is not on the line. And this isn't about you. It's about the patient and how you can be better for the patient. It's about waiting to pull the ET tube, even when everybody is staring at you and everybody is annoyed. But you have to know that 30 seconds and 1 minute is going to make the absolute biggest difference for that patient. It's putting aside your pride, putting aside your ego when you miss an intubation, when you miss a spinal or an epidural. And it's like, okay, stepping back and just closely watching your preceptor if they take over for you. Remember, it's putting that pride, putting that ego aside and saying like, okay, let me watch them. Let me observe intently. Let me ask questions, and then let me debrief with them so that next time I can try again and I can be better, because your worth is not tied to your productivity or your performance. And what you learn, right? The simple shifts of the hand for, getting A lines in and, epidurals or et cetera, like those little things that you learn waiting to pull the tube until the patient is ready to be extubated. All of those things matter so much more than your ego. And I know that is easier said than done. And I know that's difficult, but I want you to hear me in your head when you guys are at clinical, right? When or if you get a bad evaluation or an unfavorable evaluation critique in clinical, you actually get to choose what you're going to do about that eval. I'm not going to sit here and say that it doesn't hurt, it doesn't suck, but you get to decide what you are going to take from that eval, what you are going to learn from it, and decide how you're going to show up and do better the next time. That is the growth that has to happen while you're in school so that you can be an excellent CRNA for your patients. And excellence and vigilance is always going to matter more than speed and looking good. And I know the OR is like rush, 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 hurry, 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 go, go, go. But we never want to do those things at the expense of the person that is laying on the table in front of us. My personal motto always is, if my patients get home for dinner and are able to go have dinner with their family, then I've done my job. That is literally a successful day for me. Being perfect is not a successful day. Having the perfect intubation, the quickest A-line insertion is not a successful day, right? And don't get me wrong, it's a good day, and you should 100% celebrate every freaking victory, no matter how tiny, on your way, right? On your way to CRNA. You should celebrate all that stuff. Always. I'm not saying you don't, right? We celebrate the good stuff. We learn from the good stuff. We learn from everything, right? But don't get caught up in looking good and people liking you to dictate whether or not your day was successful. Okay? Don't get caught up in outward things and people liking you. That is not a successful day. A successful day is when your patients are able to get home to their family and have dinner with them. It's always what I think about. And also, not using perfection as a filter for your success. It's never going to happen. You're a human, you're not a machine. And all anyone can expect you to do is to do your best when you're caring for other human beings, which is going to lead us right into question number 3, right? Why do you need critical care experience before becoming a CRNA? So I did an episode talking about how everything matters on your way to CRNA. All the jobs you did, all the things, and they do. But specifically, you do need critical care experience because you need to take care of patients who have a lot of things going on, whether you're a surgical ICU, a medical ICU, a neuro, a trauma, transplant, cardio, it doesn't matter, right? You just need to be able to take care of patients who've got comorbidities, who have plenty of things inside their body going wrong and going on that you can manage. Because behind the scenes of what we do as critical care nurses, titrating pressors, titrating nitrates, paralytics, sedation, performing ACLS, calling physicians, calling mid-levels, calling respiratory, troubleshooting things, weaning patients off the vent, gathering supplies for procedures, right? Talking with family members. Behind all of those skills that we do, you are building the muscle of intuition. You are building the muscle of establishing rapport. You are making mistakes. You are learning from them. You are learning the art of communication so you're able to get your point across. You are setting a foundation and honing the skills that you need to be a really excellent CRNA. The move from bedside to bedhead or head of the bed is a big shift. Don't rush the process of being an excellent nurse. I know burnout is real. I know healthcare landscape has completely changed over the last few years. I get that. But don't rush the process of becoming an excellent nurse, because I will say this all the time, and I've said it before, excellent nurses do make excellent CRNAs. The CRNA profession needs leaders. We need clinicians, not technicians. And it all starts with the work that you do at the bedside, okay? And lastly, I'm going to answer the last question with a couple of examples. Why do you need to work your butt off, and why is a sacrifice always worth it? So a couple examples here. When I was a brand new CRNA, I believe I started working in May. This was like October, so about 6 or so months in. I had a situation. I was waking up a patient. Everything went well. I was the last CRNA there. The doc went in the room to start another case. All is well. I was like, oh, no problem. I got this. I won't need you. I can wake this patient up. No problem. Okay, go to wake the patient up. Something happened. patient ended up coding, right? Totally crazy. And there was a moment there where I'm like, little old me, brand new baby CRNA, right? And I look up because I think I was like looking like for help, and all eyes were on me. There was a med student in there. There was a like first year or second year medical resident or surgical resident or something. There was a nurse, the nurse, and I believe like a tech. And every single person just looked at me. And I just had this moment of like, oh my God, it's on me. Like, I'm the leader. Like there's nobody here. The surgeon is starting another case, the anesthesiologist is in another room. Like, it is literally me. And immediately it was like this quick second moment of like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And then I got into action. I said, okay, I said, I'm going to reintubate the patient. You start compressions, grab the crash cart, I just jumped into like, mode. But it was just, as I looked back and debriefed on that situation, the patient ended up doing just fine and got a cardiac workup after that. Um, but I looked back at that moment and that was like, wow, everything that I did thus far literally prepared me for that moment, because I had to step in and be the leader and take charge and remain calm and like do all the things that I knew how to do because I've had all my nursing experience and then all my time in school. And another thing is I take, at the time of this recording, at least, I take 24-hour call. I started doing 24-hour calls in 2020. And I saw a lot of stuff in school. You are not going to see everything, but I mean, on my call job, I have seen, people bleeding out from their trach site, legit bleeding out in front of my face from their trach site. I've had, like a suicide attempt of someone who had like split their trach in half, and then they called me to like secure the airway. Um, Drug issues, traumas. I've had so many things happen to me on call, and I'm literally the only anesthesia provider in house. And no, I did not see all of the things that I've seen on call. I did not see them in school, but I worked so hard in school and I had such a strong foundation. And if you can build that foundation, you can handle everything, because it all goes back to my basics, right? When I get the phone calls of, hey, this trauma's coming in or this is happening. And once again, I show up. I'm the one that's essentially running the room when I go to these things. I can do it and I can handle it, not because I've done it before, but because I've laid the foundation, because I know my basics, I know my airway basics, I know the supplies that I need, I know how to communicate in stressful situations, right? Like, I know how to direct the room. And the only reason I've been able to do that is because of my experience prior to school and the experience that I acquired while being in school. And my worst days, I'm going to do another podcast about this, but my worst, hardest days at clinicals, looking back, like when I started working my job, were the days I actually learned the most. And those people that were maybe not nice to me and pimped me and did whatever, I actually learned the most from them. And I've been able to pull from the things they taught me, when I can actually take away, my ego and that, and actually look at them for the value they're providing me, even if they're doing it in a way that is uncomfortable and mean and I don't like it. But I learned the most from them. And to this day, some of the skills that I have and the things that I do are because of some of the hardest clinical situations that I was at in school. All right. So it does come around full circle. What you are going through is not for nothing, no matter if you're applying to school now, working as a nurse, or in school, right? Stay late, ask questions, show up, and squeeze the life out of all the opportunities that are in your path. And always be on the lookout for opportunities that you can expand on, that can expand your experience in CRNA school. You're paying a lot of money to be there. Get get your money's worth out of it, right? Even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's hard, because that's your job. That's your job right now, is to be a student, to be a resident, to learn as much as you possibly can. And I know it's hard. And don't worry, we're going to talk about burnout on another episode as well, because that is also a thing as well. But hard work is never going to go out of style, and you're never going to regret the hard work that you put in. The sacrifices that I made back then are worth it, because it has saved lives. It has helped me help save lives and give good care to patients, years later as a CRNA. All right. And all in all, y'all, my husband ended up doing just fine. Um, it was rough on both of us. Obviously, he felt terrible, but I had just had a new baby. I was like, what, 3 weeks postpartum when this happened. So I was pumping and driving back and forth from the hospital. His mother was going through some things. My parents had to put their life on hold and come up. And there were a lot of things that made the situation challenging as a whole. And I say that just to remind you guys that we like have an influence. We can make a difference for a patient's quality of life, right? Like when someone someone is taken out of commission because of a complication or something like that, like we literally influence that. Like if that wouldn't have happened, like fine, it would have been whatever, but we had to make a lot of sacrifices as a family in order to kind of take care of him and put things together because he was in the ICU for 3 4 days. So I just say that to remember that, like, your influence goes far beyond just what we think happens in the hospital and in the OR. We are literally impacting the quality of people's lives, right? We're taking care of other humans that have lives and have people that love them and depend on them, right? So everything that you are going through is literally developing you into the leader that you are meant to be, that you are supposed to be, right? The love of someone's life is depending on you, like someone's child, like however it may be, like you treat everybody that comes across that table as if how you would treat your own family member or your own best friend or something like that, because they truly are depending on you. So hone the skills wherever you're at now, hone those skills. Take the bad days as they come. Still find ways and things that you can learn from everybody and everything. Everybody has some type of value to give you and teach you. You just have to get out of your ego and out of that pride and just be able to see it, right? Because you can have such a big impact and influence on your patients' lives. Work hard, make the sacrifice. I promise it will pay off in the long run. Okay. All right. Happy anesthesiaing. I will see you guys on the next episode. Take care. Thanks for hanging with me.